When he was a painfully shy 12-year-old, Peter Etril Snyder started painting to ease his loneliness. It was a childhood hobby that would change his life forever.
I have my studio at my house where I actually paint. I am one of those sort of compulsive individuals that if I don't paint, I get really cranky. So it's never a problem for me to paint. If I'm traveling, I just take my gear along.
Although Peter was born and raised in the city of Waterloo, both sides of his old Mennonite family had been farmers for hundreds of years. But despite those strict and conservative traditions, Peter remembers a happy childhood and met his future bride at Rockaway Mennonite High School. Painting was now his life, and at 19 he left the quiet safety of Waterloo for the Ontario College of Art in Toronto.
I never fit in well at art college. That probably doesn't come as a surprise to you. But here I was, this little Mennonite kid from Waterloo, and I go down to Toronto. And I remember the first day going to school, and the kids are smoking up in the hall. Hello. I didn't know what was going on. It took me, I think, probably most of the first year just to sort of get used to Toronto and art college and that kind of, I came from a terrifically structured background. You know, it was very, very delineated. Here's the line, don't step over it. And you get to a situation like our college, and if somebody hasn't done it, then that's good. Then that's what you should do. Your prowess is estimated by how much you step over the line, not how much you stay inside the line. Totally different bag. So I had a little trouble dealing with that.
Needless to say, he didn't graduate. At 22, he married his high school sweetheart and they left on their honeymoon, an extended tour of Europe. The trip let him compare the real thing with the images he had in his mind from the study of European art. He came back to Waterloo filled with new impressions. He rented a makeshift studio above a shoe store on King Street and painted with a passion. But when he tried to sell his paintings, he found that Canadians weren't interested in buying European landscapes. In order to succeed, his work had to be different, unique. He reached back into his roots and started to paint the rural Mennonite life of Waterloo County. He would travel in his van making preliminary sketches and then paint feverishly for several months to have enough for display at malls or at the blacksmith shop in St. Jacobs. People began to buy his paintings, and slowly he was establishing the distinctive style and reputation that would make him famous. From Peter's studio in downtown Waterloo, it's only a few minutes to the farming heartland of Waterloo County. This land was settled 150 years ago by Pennsylvania Dutch farmers. Today, many of the farms are owned by Mennonites, who still live and work in traditional ways that honor old customs and beliefs. Because of his past, Peter is comfortable with this old world setting, and every time he visits, he comes away with more images for new paintings.
I have been tremendously drawn to the horse-powered Mennonite groups from a very young age. Started painting things of the Mennonites already when I was in art college. And I emphasize horse-powered because the horse aspect of it, the old-fashioned, the antique, whatever term you want to use, is what interests me. When the big machinery comes into the field, to me that's a giant yawn. You know, I'm going out, I'm taking photographs. I'm always looking for bits and pieces. How am I going to use it? No idea. But if I see something that particularly appeals to it, right, there's a nice piece of business. Let's capture that. And then at some later date, when I'm composing something, say, I need this or that or whatever.
Peter will sometimes start a painting on location, using a large brush to lay in general shapes and register color and light. But he finishes it in the studio. He settles on the final composition and fills in the open spaces with details he has captured in his on-location photographs. A mirror lets him judge the work from a longer distance, and he uses paint that allows him maximum flexibility.
I've chosen a medium, acrylic, that is complementary to my personality. I'm a very quick sort of person. Acrylic is a very quick drying medium, which means I can change my mind as I go. If I was doing oil painting is a very slow kind of thing, because you have to wait for parts to dry so that you can paint over. Because if you don't, you end up with this sort of pile of mud. Whereas with acrylic, it'll dry in 10 minutes, that I can repaint, overpaint, change my mind, move this, move that. No, I didn't mean it, I mean over there. But then when it's over there, I say, yeah, but if it was over here. So that any piece of a painting that I do can be moved 17 different times.
Like any artist, Peter will sometimes agonize over when to sign his painting, when to say it's finished.
There's an old thing that says it takes two guys to do a painting. One guy to paint it, the second guy to shoot him when it's done. And there's a certain amount of truth in that. I'm very influenced by people in the past. John Singer Sargent, Terence Cuneo, Edward Seago. There is just a truckload of people that have touched my life by their work. I've been lucky enough to meet a few, but very few. But I feel like I know them. They've given me so much. They've affected my attitude. They've given me such enjoyment. What I'm looking for in a painting is not the subject. What is light doing to the subject? I want that bright snappiness that the Impressionists are famous for. You know, they had a view of what light does. It sparkles.
Despite the seemingly stern discipline and restricted lifestyle, Mennonite kids have a happy childhood with a strong sense of belonging. In school, they are always amongst equals, with a teacher who is also one of their own. After more than 30 years of painting them, Peter has been able to reach a comfortable understanding with the Mennonites.
Over the years, they've decided, well, yeah, he really is giving us a fair shake. So that a funny thing happens. People come into my gallery here, Mennonite people, park their horse or have come in by bus, and they come in and they have a look around, and then they parse my paintings just the way I've put them together. So they say, well, that's Noe's horse, but that's Levi's barn. That's not Levi's house. Now, whose house is that? And they go and they take apart this thing that I hope that I've woven together, you see, this seamless thing, and they just pull the threads apart. So in that respect, they really are kind of pleased, because there they are. Now, bear in mind, a lot of these people have never seen a photograph of themselves. They have no representation of themselves at all. So that if I do a piece of landscape, and bear in mind now, I've been doing this for a long time, what I'm showing, that building may have disappeared 20 years ago. So for them, it's a remembrance. So they approach it not from an artistic standpoint. Absolutely no interest in that at all. That's foolishness. And if they think that I'm weird, they think people that buy my things are even weirder. Because why would you want to buy the ordinary, the everyday?
After generations of living apart from the rest of society, the Mennonites have developed a strong sense of brotherhood between their families. Their entire lives are bound together both at work and at play. They live within the rhythm of the seasons, which can mean hard manual farm labor all week, followed by a joyful celebration of life at the meeting house on Sundays. This painting was commissioned by a pharmaceutical company. It's one of many Peter has painted to commemorate business.
I've done commissions for, I don't even sort of want to start naming names because it gets silly, because I've done a lot of commercial, corporate sort of things. I've done a lot of things for individuals, all the way from the RCMP to God knows who. And they're all fun, and they're all fun in a different way, and they're all a challenge. So I'm one of the few guys I think you would talk to who is an artist who is enthusiastic about commissions. I like them. I had done some sketches in England, and I was going to do these things as just straight panel paintings. And then Janet and Kevin came along with this new restaurant thing, and the idea fit so well. I said, well, okay, why don't we just essentially do these large versions?
Peter has often painted large-scale works in public, for commissions or for charity, like this mural at the new Rotary Children's Center in Waterloo. These projects help expose his work to segments of the public who may never visit art galleries. Their size and the informal atmosphere also help to break down the traditional barriers between the viewer and the artist.
I have been painting in public for years and years and years, and I like it. It's fun. It's not very serious work, you know. It's the kind of thing that I don't consider this to be, what's the word I want? Not quite performance art, but kind of in that direction. Sometimes I get into trouble because I'm talking to people so much that other people who have come to see me paint say, hey, you're supposed to be painting, eh? Like, you know, come on, I got only 10 minutes left in my lunch, and would you do something? But I'm sure I enjoy the contact with people because, you see, it's completing the cycle again. I think one of the things that is very strongly embedded in my mind and in my psyche is that whole horse thing, because as a child my father was in the dairy business, and we had horses for the wagons, and I greatly enjoyed that. And I find it very difficult to pass an animal without stopping and petting and mucking around, you know. I find I maybe get on better with animals than I do with people, I don't know. I did a painting of two little lambs, and I had it in my gallery, and a woman came in and she said, those are my lambs. I said, what? Excuse me? When I was a kid in Europe after the war, my job was to take the lambs to the side of the road. Everything else was torn up, and I take them to the side of the road so they have something to eat. Now, do you think that I could have calculated that? Not in a million years. Because people bring to my work, bring to any artist's work, their own experience, and they plug that in. For me, a painting starts normally with some either incident or some visual bit of information. So I'm walking through a bush someplace and I see something that really I find terrifically attractive. Or I'm driving in my car and I see some guy in the field doing something and I find it attractive. I'm not a rocket scientist. This is, for me, is not an intellectual thing. It's a gut thing. It's an aesthetic thing. It appeals to me. It charms me. It draws me in. And that's what I'm trying to do with the viewer of my painting. I want the viewer of my painting to experience what I'm feeling.
Like Hollywood actors, artists tend to get typecast by the public. People sometimes think of Peter's work only in terms of Mennonites, horses, and historical subjects. In reality, he paints many other subjects, from portraits to flowers, to landscapes and interiors. And although most of his work is executed in acrylics, he'll often use watercolors, pastels, ink, and pencil, especially in his travel sketches.
my studio at home is lined with paintings in progress. Now, some of them have been there 2 months, some have been there 15 years. Sometimes I just can't seem to find the missing piece. I can't seem to turn the key. It's almost there, it's close to there, but it's not there. I used to paint things the way, when I first started, the way I thought they should be, would be. And then with training in time, I learned to observe more accurately, and I painted things pretty much the way they are. And now I tend to paint things the way I want them to be. I really compose and rearrange and put things together to get the strongest impact. I think I just want people to respond in a human way to what I do. This is one human to another. That's all this is. You know, I don't call myself an artist. I try and avoid that. I'm a picture maker. Okay? And the problem that I have with the term artist is it's getting so sort of fancy and there are so many arguments going on about what is art, is this art? I don't even get into that. I'm lucky enough that I get to do my craft, which is picture making. I like it, and I'm fortunate enough that other people like it. That's it. People just can come in and see my paintings. You know, I go to exhibitions, I go to people's homes, I travel around, and I see paintings that have been done in the past, and they delight me. And if I can produce something that somebody 100 years from now is going to be delighted by, I can't ask more than that.